Hi, everybody. Although I'm not going to make any video clips, I'm going to do a copyright disclaimer because I don't know if this material, these maps are copywritten or not. So this is all a speculative kind of video, just thinking out loud kind of thing. And it's readdressing a video I made previously. I could leave the links. Um, but it has to do if we are, Earth as we know it is only a portion of the larger realm of God's creation and does it run like on a clock mechanism. Um, and I'll read this. And the fourth quarter, named the north, is divided into three parts. The first of them is for the dwelling of men. The second contains seas of water and the abysses and forests and rivers and darkness and clouds. And the third part of the garden of righteousness from Enoch. So this is just a food for thought kind of video. And this was a map from, I can't remember the guy's name, but the links will be provided. But my overall conclusion was, finding at least some air in it. Um, their conclusion is that we move 30 degrees every 2,160 years, which would um, take some over 24,000 years to do one circumference. And the original video uh, pretty much canceled itself out because they had showed how the magnetic North Pole is moving, and it takes 115 years to move 20 degrees, and then 2,700 years to make the entire circuit compared to 24,000, 25,000, something like that. And I've been giving thought, why isn't this magnetic north, this line that it's, migrating itself over into Russia, why isn't it perfectly straight? And, here's the spirograph kind of illustration. Now, this is a square wheel inside of a round wheel, and this illustration shows the circuit being drawn is closer to the outside, and it's a little bit straighter than this one where it's closer to the inside. My point bringing it up is which could explain why it wouldn't be perfectly straight if it is making a circuit. Um, and here's like the UN type map. And if it is making a circuit, it looks like it's going um, from our perspective in a clockwise position. But if it's turning inside of another wheel, it would actually be counterclockwise, which all sounds a little counterintuitive. But something that is noticeable about it, like on the left hand side is South America and it kind of blurs out down on the bottom, as well as Mexico and the peninsula. It kind of stretches out, and even Australia on the right now, according to some maps, is much larger today than it has been. And all of this, I wish I could find a better map, but the USGS has really changed out their maps from years ago. I remember looking at it thinking, that there's this twisting going on around the Ring of Fire. And this is where there's a lot more activity going on as far as earthquakes and volcanoes, this type thing. Um, but it does, this sort of pattern does line up with, if our Earth is being twisted, if you will. Um, and on that thought, I just want to bring up um, that, like Japan, for example, is really um, prone to earthquakes. And this is a part of the world where there's underwater cities, magnificent cities, and that isn't the only place. Like off of Florida, in that part of the Atlantic, there's underground cities. There is in the Mediterranean. It's scattered throughout the world. But the point being, but this twisting action lines up with we might be moving on a clock type mechanism, if you will. Now, this is a very old map, and it looks now there's landmass at the North Pole, like four type islands. I'm not thinking of the name of it, but they would think of this as oftentimes as the Garden of Eden. And and here's now what I want to point out here. Look at how close and distorted California is. This did make the map. Now I want to discuss this further in regard to another map. But I mean, it looks like you could take a canoe over to another landmass. And between Asia and the what would now be the U.S. continent, I mean, it looks more like a strait than an ocean, the Pacific Ocean. Now, it could be the distortion of the map itself, but something I've been thinking about um, as far as how land masses can change and these underwater cities is a couple things, is like major disasters. Now, does the turning of this clock create big time disasters? Does the amount of water on the earth change? Now, they say, well, what happens with a glass of ice water? Well, the ice just melts, it doesn't overflow. But what if you add more ice cubes? Okay, there are times, so it is said, like Antarctica was not frozen, but was there ice in other places? I mean, what really would happen if you had a, a, a continent of ice dump in the ocean? We're not talking a little iceberg on that degree. So, what I'm getting at between um, upheaval like earthquake, volcano, water level changes could be going on. Um, One thing I just want to address real quick while we're on this map, and the whole Tartaria thing made me, the naming of it made me very uneasy from the get go. I just want to point out a couple things. You know, across from California, which would be Russia, Asia continent, they have it Asia here. We have a location named Gog, and Gog Magog war is in the Bible as very negative connotation that they go after the saints. And I think it's a people in a land, but also like a spiritual leadership that was set up by God, like an angelic, not so nice angel, Gog and Magog. I think Magog is the spiritual entity in charge of an area of land. And also on this map, we have the Mongols that really don't have a very good reputation. We have Tartar, and I can't read the rest. Via, maybe. And down on the bottom there, we have the Ocean of Scythias. And the Scythians really don't have a very good reputation in history either. So, just want to comment on that. But mostly it's about how distorted California, there it is. California's been around, gang. And it looks like you could take a canoe up to that island, which surrounds the North Pole. And from there, I want to move on a little bit and look at this. Oh, I call it the Jesus map because, um, well, I'll point it out here in a little bit. So this is a 1674 map. I don't know the date on the previous map. Maybe I'll leave it in the notes if I could find it. I just don't have it in front of me right now. Um, but let's look at this, how this is orientated upside down like the previous map of the North Pole. What is so peculiar about this map actually is a couple things. And it's upside down now, but the arrows are pointing at um, a continental divide. Okay, so maybe after this point in the 1700s is when uh, the Mississippi actually did change directions. According to this, it runs north and south, like from this continental divide. Like from the northern part of the United States, it runs into the Great Lakes. The southern portion would run into the Gulf of Mexico. So I find that very odd. And I mean, are these mistakes? I mean, it's worth questioning if our environment has changed very drastically. And it's upside down in the middle. It's described as a glacier. And if they're going to describe a glacier, I am wondering why Yellowstone isn't on there. I mean, it's just left this big void. I mean, was this ice that moved down? These are just questions out loud. You could see by the rest of the map all the details of it, and it's heavily populated. And on the upper right, that's the island of California, and I call it the Jesus map because this is and it's sorry it's upside down, but I'm trying to give context to that other map, there's the land of Jesus, and the coastline just stops. Did that land, was it seriously displaced in our not so distant past? These are questions. And then it has below the land of Jesus. Let me say it again. It would be, up a notch is the Sea of Iasus. And it's the Greek for Jesus. Now, um, these are just questions, but the whole orientation. Now, there's the old map with the California, and here's that map again of California, upside right, if you will. Um, but again, does this motion of the clock cause real big upheavals in our landscape? You know, does it cause mountain ranges to form, cities to sink? Now, there's, we live in a techno era where people can, quote, push the God button, like, oh, a hurricane or an earthquake. But I'm talking God changes, okay? This is all just food for thought, but this map I really do want to explore further, and because it is so very interesting, don't you suppose? Okay, that's it for today, and have a good day.